For this tutorial, I'm using Blender version 3.4. Hi, my name is Guy, Mystery Guy. In this tutorial, we're going to use a new object called an empty. It's new to us. We're going to add spheres. We're going to set a parent-child relationship. There'll be multiple rotations. I'm going to show you a new way to add keyframes. We're going to be using new materials and textures, and we're going to use a new material for the world to create a night sky with stars. By the end of this tutorial, you're going to create a video that looks just like this. Click off the splash screen, click on the default cube, and press the delete key. Some people prefer to press the letter X. Go up to Add, Mesh, and UV Sphere. I'm going to move it along the X-axis. I could go over to the location on the right and just type in the number 4. I'm going to try a different way. I'm going to type the letter G, then the letter X. That will restrict the movement to the X-axis. Then I'm going to type the number 4. And then click when done. Let me zoom in a bit. We can see the different faces of that sphere. Right-click on it and do Shade Smooth. That's better. Go up to Add, Mesh, UV Sphere. And now I want that a little smaller. So type S for scale and then type 0.3, enter. I'm going to move that sphere. So type G, then Y, then 2, then enter. I'm going to move it again, so type G, then X, then 4, then enter. I'm going to right-click on it and do Shade Smooth. I'm going to change the camera locations for this. So click on Camera, and the locations I've chosen is X equals 20, Y equals minus 20, Z equals 16, and for the rotations, the X rotation is 60, and the Z rotation is 45. I'm going to rename these two spheres. The big one, I'm going to double-click on Sphere and rename that Planet. And the small one, I'm going to rename that to Moon. This would be a good time to save your work again. Up in the top right, these are all the display options. We're on the solid view. Go 2 to the right for rendered view. And now look at the planet. It's light on the top and it's shaded on the bottom. All this gray area, that's the world material. I want that to be black for the night sky. Go over to the right and click on the world properties. And then if you look at the color, it's hard to tell, but that is a color. It's the same as the background panel color. Click on that, drag the luminosity button all the way to the bottom, and there is our night sky. Next, let's add materials to the planet and the moon. With the planet selected, click on the materials property, click on New, rename the material to Planet. Let's go up top to the shading workspace. I'm going to roll my mouse wheel to zoom out a bit. We're going to add the texture, add texture, Musgrave. I'm going to drag it up and join the height to the base color. For the settings for Musgrave, The scale I'm going to keep at 5. The detail I'm going to drag all the way to the right to 15. And the dimension is 0.6. There, we've got something happening, but I want to add some color. That's just black and white. Let me click on the title of Musgrave, drag it to the left. To make room, I'm going to add something in between. Do Add, Converter, and Color Ramp. When you drag that down and then click, Blender joins them up for you. And this color ramp, I could do a whole tutorial on it. It's so powerful and everybody uses it. What we need to know is there's 2 stops. That's the black one and the white one. Those are the black and white colors we have. If I can click on that stop and drag it, if you look at the planet, we're getting more black. I'll put that back where it started and drag the white. Now we're getting more white. I'm going to keep the stops at the extreme. Click on the black one, and where the color black bar is, click on that. Drag the luminosity up to the middle somewhere, and then just click on a blue. You pick one. There's our planet. I'm going to add a texture for the moon. Click on the moon. Click New. I'm going to scroll back out a bit. Click on Material and rename that to Moon. Texture I'm going to add is Veroni. Join the distance with the base color. Let me zoom in on the viewport so we can see that a little better. For the Veroni scale, I used 3.3. I'm going to add a color ramp, so let me drag the texture box over. So Add, Converter, Color Ramp. And the first stop, the black one on the left, I'm going to drag that. Watch the position down here on the right. I want to stop that around 0.25. The right one, I'm going to drag to the left, and I'm going to stop that at around 0.6. These affect the contrast. Close enough. That's our moon. Let's go back to the layout workspace. Let's add the rotations now. We've done that before, back in tutorial 1. Remember that? Great fun, great fun. I'm going to put the mouse pointer down just above the timeline until it becomes a double arrow. Click and drag up, so I've got a little more room. I'm going to click on the planet, then over to the object properties. There's our rotations. They're all set to 0. I want a keyframe at frame 1 for the Z rotation, so it spins. In the past, to add a rotation, I told you to type the letter I and then click on rotation. Watch this. It said a keyframe, but it also keyframed X and Y. I don't want that. I want just the Z. That's more efficient. Let me go back to the top left, click Edit and Undo. No keyframes. The efficient way, if I just want one rotation, one axis, I'm going to go over and click that little button. Just click. There, I added a keyframe. We can see that in frame 1 on the timeline. That's more efficient. That's the only axis I want. Let's go to the end of our animation, frame 250. I'm going to type in 500. Press Enter. I'm going to click that diamond now that's blank. There, I have a keyframe. Let me go back to frame 1 and play the animation. The planet is spinning. I'm going to do the same thing with the moon. I'll click on the moon. I'm at frame 1. I'm going to click the Z rotation button. I have a keyframe now at frame 1. I'm going to go to the end, frame 250. And for this rotation, I'm going to type 1000. Because I think that moon spins a little faster than the planet. Let's go back to the beginning and play it now. The next step is I want to get the planet. Let me click on it. I'm going to type G for grab. I'm not going to click. I'm just going to move my mouse. I want the planet to be orbiting something like that. But wait a minute. The moon is still sitting there. The moon has to follow the planet. I'm going to right-click to cancel the move. To get the moon to follow the planet, I have to establish a parent-child relationship. With that relationship, wherever the parent moves, the child will follow it. This is very common in Blender. So click on the object that you want to be the child. Click on that first. Hold the Shift key, click on the parent, and they're both selected now. You can see the outlines. Go up top to Object, and then down to Parent, and click on Object. I'm going to click on the planet all by itself. The moon is not selected. And I'm going to type G again for grab. Watch this. Now they're connected. How cool is that? Right click. To get the planet to orbit, I have to do something else. And it's easier to show you if we go back to solid view in the top right. Click that white circle. Now go to add, and this is new for us. We're going to add an empty, and I'm going to choose a plane axis. In the bottom left, the radius, I'm going to change that to 3 so I can see it a little better. Now the empty, if we look on the right, it has properties, location, rotation, scale, but it never renders. It's used to manipulate other objects. Watch this. I'm going to go to the Z rotation and just drag. There, I'm rotating the empty. Set it back to 0. Next, I'm going to click on the planet, and I'm going to set a child-parent relationship between the planet and the empty, same as we did with the moon. With the planet selected, I'm going to hold Shift, click on the empty, go to Object, Parent, and Object. Let me click on the empty. Watch what happens now. I'm going to go over to the Z location and rotate it, and there they go. I think you know what's going to happen next, folks. I'm going to go to frame 1. And for the empty selected, we see the name there, set a keyframe for Z, go to the end of our timeline, frame 250, I'm going to type in 360, add a keyframe, go back to the beginning, and let's play our animation now. There we go. How sweet is that? The last thing to do is we've got that night sky. I'm going to add some stars. Time to make some stars. I'd like to go back up to click on the shading workspace, go over to the right where the viewport options and click on rendered view. Go down to the materials panel, and this is critical, where it says object, select world. Those two boxes are a little small. I'm going to hold the Shift key down and drag my mouse and then roll my mouse wheel to zoom in. Good. I have 2 elements to add. The first one I'm going to add, I don't know where it is. So I'm going to search. It's map range I'm looking for. So I'll just type in the first part, map. Now I can see it. Map range. I'll click on that. Drag that in, connect result to color. I'm going to add a texture. Add texture, and down near the bottom, Veroni. Drag that in place on the left and connect distance to value. Where it says F1, change that to smooth F1. The scale, we're going to change from 5 to 200. So now the sky, it's sort of reversed it. So white sky with black stars, that's what the map range does. For the minimum value, type in 0.05. And the max value, type 0. There's our stars. Let's go back to the layout, rendered view, and I'm going to type 0 for camera view. That's what the camera sees. The last thing I want to change is that light. Go over to the right, click on light, and I'm going to change the location and the power. The location for X, I'm using 10. Y is 9. Z is 7. And the rotations. X is 40. And Z is 1040. Let me go back to frame 1, play the animation. One more thing I want to add, I look at the planet and the moon, they're a little dim. So I'll go down to the object data properties, and where it says power, change from 1000 to 5000. That's better. I'll play it now. All you have left to do now is to render this animation to make your video. So quick reminder, you'll click on the output properties where you see the output file name and location. You click on that folder to select what you want. PNG, change that to MPEG video. Let me move this up a bit. Encoding, change from Mastroka to MPEG 4. Top left, click render, and then render animation, and away you go. When you're done, your video will look like this. In this tutorial, you learned how to add an empty and manipulate it. You added some spheres. You set parent-child relationships. You did multiple rotations. You found a new and efficient way to add keyframes. You added new materials and textures. And for the world, you learned how to create a night sky. In our next tutorial, you're going to create a video that's going to look just like this. See you soon. Lights, cameras, action!